Hello and welcome to the channel. We're going to take a look this morning at the market action for May the 1st, 2025. We can see that the Dow closed up 0.21%. The S&P 500 was up 0.63%. NASDAQ led with a rise of 1.52%. And we can see that the VIX decreased about 0.4% to 2460. When we look at the sectors, we can see that the leader was technology and industrial groups, and the laggards were consumer staples and healthcare. When we take a look at some of the big tech names, we can see that Microsoft led the way with a 7.63% increase yesterday following their earnings, along with Meta, where they beat on the top and bottom lines, as did Microsoft. And Meta was up 4.23%. Amazon reported yesterday after the bell, along with Apple. They were both up moving into the earnings report, but we'll take a look at the pre-market and see how they're doing in the pre-market. When we look at the SPX, one thing to notice is we've had 8 consecutive trading days where the price closed higher than the previous day. Yesterday we did close above a declining 50-day moving average. On April the 25th, we did close above the anchored VWAP that's anchored at January the 4th, 2024. That line has started increasing again after decreasing for several days. We're also at this support line that we see here that was tested on March the 13th and then retested again on March the 31st. And then it became resistance, but we have since crossed above that particular resistance line. When we look at the Fibonacci retracement from the intraday low, we can see that we've retraced back to the February 19th high. We're almost at the level of 61.8. The SPX is still trading below the 200-day moving average, which also corresponds to the August 5th, 2024 anchored VWAP. They're almost exactly the same at this point. We did get a MACD signal line crossover to the upside. Since that point, we've been increasing. We did get a confirmation of that signal on April the 23rd, which would have indicated a buy signal using the MACD and RSI. The RSI is currently sitting at 56.26. The 12-day moving average on the MACD is almost above the midpoint. As long as the RSI stays above 50, that would be a strong buy signal. The VIX peaked at 60.13 on April the 7th. Good news is since that time we've been on a steady decline with a few aberrations, but we're down to 24.6 at the moment. I'd really like to see us get below this 200-day moving average with the VIX below 20. The price action for Microsoft was very positive yesterday following their earnings announcement after the close the previous day. We can see that it's closed above the 200-day moving average, which is actually the first time that it's been above the 200-day moving average for quite some time, probably right around January the 29th or so. Microsoft also had very high trading volume. yesterday. And one interesting thing that I noticed is it was above average the day prior, which might have been some indication of what to expect following the earnings. We can see that we had a MACD crossover around the 21st of April. The 12-day moving average is now above the midline, and the signal line is actually getting very close, so we got a pretty strong buy signal there. We did get the RSI above 50 on about the 23rd, and we can see that it has nice strength. Almost getting to the oversold condition at this point. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but it can stay in oversold condition for some time. I also noticed that the intraday price action was pretty high at the start and closed at 425.40 yesterday. If we look at the intraday for Microsoft, we can see that we had the big peak up to a high of 436, and then it trended downwards until at the end of the day we did see a sell-off down to the 425.40. When we move to Meta, we can also see that they had a very nice day yesterday following their earnings. Intraday, they did move up above their 50-day and 200-day, but Meta ended up closing below those two lines at 572.24. They also had nice volume for the last 2 days. It was actually a decrease the day prior in price, and following their earnings, we had high volume with a higher price. Meta does have a signal line crossover, but the PPO is still below the midpoint, and we've just gotten an RSI that's above 50. It had been right at 50. It has moved up to 55.24. So this isn't a terribly strong buy because we are in negative territory, but for some risk takers, this indicates that we're in a pretty good position moving forward with Meta. Apple reported their earnings after the bell yesterday. We can see that they closed yesterday at about 213, and during the aftermarket and the pre-market this morning, they are trending down. Looks to open around 205 this morning, despite beating on the top and bottom lines. Amazon also beat on the top and bottom lines. We can see that they closed yesterday around 190, and after they reported, there was a pretty sizable drop down to about 181. There has been some recovery in the aftermarket and the pre-market this morning. Looks like they could open somewhere around 189. Looking at the futures market on Seeking Alpha, we can see that the Dow futures are up about 0.4%. S&P futures are up 0.3%, and the NASDAQ futures are up 0.2%. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a great day. Wish you the best. Talk to you later. Bye.